This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 155 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by Omega Fields, the world's best omega-3 supplements for horses. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network. And speaking of family, today we have two ladies, one very close to me. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st to the 15th of the month, and I have my producer, Jen, with me today. Hi, Jen.
Hello, Debbie. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. As we record this episode, the days officially are starting to get longer, and for everyone who doesn't live in Southern California, we are so happy.
Oh, you're in Florida. Not too bad. Come on.
It's not too bad here in Florida. No, not too bad at all.
I love this time of year, though. It's, we're gonna go on a ladies' ride here pretty soon. We're gonna see all the little baby critters out there and the flowers, and I'm really excited about it too. So it's nice. Yeah. Springtime. Well, I'm excited about this episode because, speaking of grasses in springtime, we have Juliet Getty again on obesity.
She has a very interesting take on this.
Mm-hmm. It's good, and it's science, girls. So, if you're doubting it all, listen closely, because she knows and she's been around. And I have friends now who are clients of Juliet's, and they're testing everything she's doing, and they love her. So, think up on that one. And then also, I have my mom on. Why? Because she's spanking all the kids in competitions. And I couldn't stuff it any longer. I had to brag on her. And, and we talk about that too, actually. So
interesting stuff. I learned lots of things about Pat Roberts that I didn't know before. And I learned lots of things about overweight horses that I didn't know before. So let's get on with it right after we hear from Omega Fields, our title sponsor.
Here we go. At Flag Is Up Farms, we've used Omega Fields Horseshine for years, and we love the results. And we're not the only ones. Glenna Fittiment has this to say about her experience with Omega Horseshine. I was first introduced to Horseshine about 10 years ago by another rider at my barn who used it for her horses and loved it too. Her horses were in such good condition, coat, feet, mane, tail, I decided I had to have a try. I started my horse on it and haven't looked back since. Horseshine is such a great all-around supplement and helps with more than just shine, although it makes the horses so shiny. It's so palatable, and I find the horses eat it readily, and they lick their bowls clean. I've always kept my horses on it since I was first introduced. They always look so good, and I always have people comment on how shiny they are. We'll always be happy members of the Horseshine family. Juliet Getty is an independent equine nutritionist with a wide U.S. and international following. Her research-based approach optimizes equine health by aligning physiology and instincts with correct feeding and nutrition practices. Dr. Getty's goal is to empower the horse person with the knowledge to provide the best nutrition for his or her horse's needs. Dr. Getty is the author of the comprehensive resource, Feed Your Horse Like a Horse, as well as 7 topic-centered spotlights on equine nutrition series of booklets. They're really great. She also offers an informative newsletter, Forage for Thought, and her website, GettyEquineNutrition.com, provides a world of useful information for the horse person. Well, welcome. Welcome again, Dr. Juliet Getty. I'm so happy to have you back.
Well, thank you again. It is always a pleasure. Thank you, Debbie.
It is for us because we learn so much when you're on. And this is one of those topics that you've tossed up in the air, and I grabbed it really fast because I think there's a lot of us out there who are on both sides of this topic, and it is obesity. So I'm going to let you jump in here. But one thing that intrigued me, and I'll start with this question, is that you emphasize for people how hormones impact being overweight and how horses become overweight by the way we house them and feed them. And,
Sure.
you know, when you start talking hormones and overweight, all us women prick our ears up. Sounds awfully familiar. So,
Yes.
So jump in there. How does that work for horses?
That is so true. And, you know, there have been literally thousands of research articles on how hormones impact body fat and obesity and the inability to lose weight and all of that with humans. And yet, for some reason, we don't seem to carry that to the animal world, and it really applies there as well. One of the best ways to start with this is to think about a horse in a wild setting during the winter time, and the snow is starting to cover the ground. The horse has to work at getting something to eat, pawing through the snow. And certainly the forages is not as plentiful as it was in the spring. Mm-hmm. And so the horse responds by producing more insulin. In fact, in the wild, a horse will become naturally insulin resistant. Insulin will rise. And the reason for that is because insulin tells the body to store fat. So that's how the horse gets through the winter. It's a survival mechanism. So insulin goes up, body fat remains plentiful, and the horse makes it through the rough season. But in a domesticated situation, when we restrict forage, we tell the horse that winter is here. And so the horse's brain and body respond to that circumstance as though winter is coming, forage is becoming less plentiful, therefore insulin needs to go up, and the body holds on to fat, and the horse remains fat, even though the horse owner is attempting to get the fat off the horse by restricting forage. So if we can look at it that way at first, you can start to see the solution pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter. We're talking geldings, mares.
Doesn't
stallion.
matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether it's any of those. And of course, and that includes other equine species, donkeys, miniature horses, and so on. So all equines do respond to forage restriction by raising insulin. And that tells the body to store fat. So our attempt to help the horse lose weight by putting the horse on a forage restricting diet actually makes things worse. The horse might lose some weight, but what they really lose is muscle, not fat.
Yeah.
So this becomes a real issue.
It does. So I guess the first thing is not to get our horses overweight.
Well, yes, and that's another issue.
Okay.
We do tend to. So let's kind of start there. Why are horses overweight in the first place? Because they are overfed. The feed industry loves to, package all these beautiful feeds and fancy packages, and the directions say things like feed 1 pound per 100 pounds of body weight. So if you have a 1,000-pound horse, that's 10 pounds of feed a day, and I'm just following directions, right? So 10 pounds of sweet feed a day, that's going to pack on the pounds pretty quickly. So we do tend to overfeed our horses in the first place, which sets them up for becoming overfat, which then becomes a vicious cycle because obesity leads to more obesity due to the presence of inflammatory molecules that the fat cells actually secrete. So the first step is to feed them properly. You do want to make sure that they're not getting an excessive amount of calories. You want to meet their energy needs. And this is based on, are they just a lawn ornament and they're out in the field and just grazing all day? Or are they performing? Are they in training? So depending on the energy need, certainly you want to meet that by providing the caloric content necessary. But you don't want to overdo it. And then if you have an overweight horse and you want the horse to lose weight, by all means, take away the heavy caloric feeds and just give them an appropriate forage and along with the right supplementation, because hay is pretty miserable nutritionally.
Yeah.
So you have to supplement it. And then let them be what they're meant to be, and that is a grazing animal.
Okay. And that we've talked about before. You and I have shared lamentations of that difficulty in some equestrian centers. So people should go back and listen to some of those past episodes about different ways that truly you can do to get that more spread out in their daily routine of eating. So we won't go too heavily into that, but suffice it to say, you would say forage, 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 and
Yes.
And make that happen, whatever you can, given whatever your horse's situation housing is. But if we've got our obese horse now, let's say we bought it that way. Yeah, that's it. we didn't cause it, but we've got our obese horse and we want to start ratcheting back. We want our horse healthy. We don't want laminitis. We don't want all those bad things. What do we do?
Well, the first thing you want to do is, as I mentioned, you want to remove the concentrates. You want to remove certainly all cereal grains, get away from sweet feeds.
Right.
You would need some type of a carrier feed that you can add your supplements to. That could be something simply as like a hay cube or a hay pellet.
Okay.
And then you want to test your hay. And I know that this is a problem for some people, especially if you're in a boarding situation where the hay supply comes in, new hay comes in every week, and it's difficult to test. But if it's at all possible, it's important to try to test your hay at least some of the time in order to test to make sure that the sugar and starch is appropriately low so that you can allow your horse to have access to that forage 24/7. Okay. And that's the key. It has to be available all the time. And when I say that, I mean not even 10 minutes without it. Because if the horse runs out, even for a few minutes, the horse will perceive that as winter is coming and I need to hold on to body fat. They don't understand that hay's going to be here in just a few minutes. Mm-hmm. So we need to turn off that stress response in the brain that says that I need to hold on to body fat. And the only way to do that is to make sure that the hay is always around. And once that happens, the horse will start to self-regulate and calm down his eating, eat more slowly, and eat less. But we do need to make sure that the hay is appropriate first. Would you like me to go into some of the indicators on that?
Yes, please.
So when you have your hay tested, there's a few things that you want to pay attention to. There's an as-fed column and a dry matter column. So take a look at the dry matter column. And you'll want to add two numbers. One is called ESC, stands for ethanol soluble carbohydrates. That's your sugar. Right. And you want to add that to starch. So ESC plus starch should be no more than 10% on a dry matter basis. Okay. And so that tells you that it's a low sugar hay. The other thing you want to look at is the digestible energy. That's the number of calories. So if you're feeding a high caloric hay, then you're providing too many calories. So we want your horse to have access to hay all the time, but we don't want him to have a hay that's really providing too much energy. Mm-hmm. So the digestible energy should be ideally no more than 0.88 megacalories per pound. Okay. And so those are the two things that you want to take a look at.
Okay. And in what part of the country you're in? You're in Texas, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where do you go to get your hay tested?
Well, I prefer to use a national lab. It's called Equine Analytical Labs. Okay. They are a division of Dairy One, and they do hay testing throughout the country for farmers. But Equine Analytical is the one that concentrates on horses. So they offer indicators that are more specific to horses. So you go to their website, which is equi-analytical.com. And you can order one of their forage collecting kits. I prefer their test number 601. It's called their EquiTech number 601. And it's economical. I think they still charge $28. It certainly won't break the bank, and it gives you a wealth of information.
Okay. And then to solve that problem that you mentioned earlier about you're at an equestrian center and the hay comes and goes, and obviously you're not going to send in every bale that goes in front of your stall. What do you see people do to try
Well,
to solve
that's a problem. That can be a real issue. Then you have to do a little detective work if you can. And that would be to try and figure out who the hay grower is.
Yeah.
Or at least the broker that's supplying it.
Okay.
And that way you might be able to access some more of it so that you could test it more regularly. Mm-hmm. There are circumstances where this is not possible, and that's unfortunate. So do everything you can to test your hay.
You know, if we talk about Dr. Getty, we are always talking about optimizing, and that's what I really appreciate you about. You know, you just tell us what's optimum. We'll just shoot for that goal. We can't always, we're not going to feel too guilty, are we, folks? Don't feel too guilty. We'll do our best, because that brought me to another question of what are the sources of stress? Because one of the things that you said is stress is caused, or at least a winter mode is caused by the lack of hay. But there are other factors that you've mentioned before that cause stress, which can also change the hormones. And what can we do about some of those? And what are those sources?
Stress, of course, is the thing that raises cortisol levels. Mm-hmm. And cortisol is the hormone that comes from the adrenal gland that tells the body to ignore insulin's attempt to get glucose into the cells. So glucose remains elevated, insulin remains elevated, and that causes the body to store fat. So we want to lower those cortisol levels. And forage restriction is one of the most stressful things that you can do to a horse. But there are other stressors. Certainly stall confinement is very stressful because horses are naturally claustrophobic. They need to flee when they're frightened. Mm-hmm. And if they're confined, they feel as though their life is in danger. Mm-hmm. So that is very difficult. If a horse is injured and is told to be put on stall rest, to me, stall rest is anything but restful. It is extremely stressful, which actually, ironically, slows down healing, because when the stress is elevated, the horse does not heal as quickly.
That is interesting.
So, get the horse out of the stall. I mean, if you have to put up some temporary fencing or something to get the horse out and put another horse in there with the horse to another horse that will not agitate the horse that's injured and calm him down. There's things that you can do, but it does take some more effort. So stall confinement, the lack of a buddy. I see a lot in my work with people. I oftentimes come across sleep deprivation as a form of stress because horses are by themselves, and horses, as we know, sleep standing up so that they can, run away quickly if needed. But they also need to lie completely prone for about 20 to 30 minutes every day to sleep deeply. And they won't do that. I mean, there's always exceptions, but most of the time, they will not do that if they don't have a buddy to stand and watch over things while they sleep. They generally take turns if there's two horses in a field, for example. And so sleep deprivation is extremely stressful. Certainly traveling, trailering, going to unfamiliar locations where they're confined, there are unusual smells, the water tastes different, there's other horses there that they don't know. All of those things can be very difficult for a horse.
Okay. So, but for now, since we've got everybody worried about, oh my gosh, I'm not natural enough with my horse, but is that not being allowed to graze on forage, though, is the top of your list? Yeah.
It is, because horses are grazing animals. Mm-hmm. They are designed physically to have a steady flow of forage going through their digestive tract at all times. And this is immediately apparent when you take a look at the stomach that produces acid 24/7. Our stomachs don't do that. We're not grazing animals. Horses need to be able to chew, produce saliva to neutralize acid. And then on top of that, their stomachs are not protected with a mucus lining throughout the whole stomach. So they need to be able to graze and chew, and that will help protect them against ulcers and colic and the stress that can lead to a laminitis episode. All of these things. And so, I realize that I might be making some people feel very uneasy right now. And my goal is not to instill guilt or unease or dis-ease, I guess. But my goal is actually to think more like your horse does and make attempts to fulfill their physiological need so that they can be healthier. And when they're healthier, then you obviously enjoy them better, because nobody enjoys having to nurse a sick animal, and you don't like to see your horse in pain. So removing the stress is the first thing. And I do, if I may, just digress for just a moment, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about cortisol. They've tested horses that are restricted, and they've tested their cortisol levels, and it comes back normal. And they say, you see, it doesn't cause them any stress. Well, that's not true, because cortisol may not be elevated in the bloodstream, but it might be elevated inside the tissues, first of all. And the second thing is there's been some fascinating research on people with prolonged stress. And after a while, the cortisol level actually declines, but the hypothalamus pituitary axis, which is a cascade of hormones, is actually damaged. And so we have damaged horses that we're having to deal with. And it's particularly difficult to take a horse that has a history of forage restriction for years and is overweight, and to try to help him lose weight is really very challenging. And I work with folks to do this, but it could take a year or more of patience and deliberate changes to make it happen.
Well, we're so glad you're out there. I read an interesting article about this subject by you called Obesity, the Real Cause and the Real Fix. And I think we'll leave that with some optimism here in this interview, is that thank God you're out there, Juliet Getty. And I hope people
bless you for saying that.
Oh, it's true, because it's a confusing environment out there, first of all, for us. But I like people to know too that you actually take you counsel people with healthy horses just to keep them that way too. So let's start there. I know my friend Nellie Kennedy recently called you, and Luna, she takes care of like her baby. And I think it's wonderful that she can just validate what she's doing or tweak or whatever just by knowing that you're out there and getting a hold of you. So how do people get a hold of you?
Well, I invite you to go to my website, which is gettyequinenutrition.com, and you can email me by the same name, gettyequinenutrition@gmail.com. And while you're on my website, please take a look at the library link. I have a wealth of information there that talks about overweight horses, the benefits of free choice feeding, and a lot of articles on the hormonal response that influences weight loss and weight gain.
Wonderful. It is a huge resource, your website. May it always live. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Dr. Juliet Getty, for joining us on Horsemanship Radio.
My distinct pleasure, Debbie. Thank you so much for having me.
Cavallo hoof boots are easy to get on and stay on in all types of terrain and activities. Unique drainage slots allows water to drain out quickly, and they are super easy to take off too. With Cavallos, you spend your time on the trail with your best friend, not wasting time putting on complicated hoof boots. Cavallo hoof boots come in 3 durable upper options and 2 sole widths. You get confidence and security with their Best Boot ironclad warranty. Cavallo hoof boots take you where you want to go.
Pat Roberts is an accomplished horsewoman. She grew up loving horses and has trained, bred, and showed championship horses most of her life. She met Monty Roberts, my dad, in grammar school, and after marrying, they began their careers together too. A talented artist, it was natural for her to gravitate towards creating numerous sculptures of the horse in motion. Pat has been honored with many awards, and her sculpture is a part of the permanent collection at the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington, Kentucky, the European Museum of Art, as well as in several corporate headquarters, both here and in the United States and abroad. She has collections in 15 countries now and is in the personal collection of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Windsor Castle. And we're going to learn today about a few new trophies she's collected as well. Welcome back, Mom. Pat Roberts, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me back.
Oh, we love having you back. We love hearing your stories. And we usually have, probably like groups of people around you, or we're always talking about something you guys did, like invent, team penning and and going back into history on these. But I actually wanted to talk about what you've been doing most recently, but there is a tie-in to a generational story here that I just couldn't pass up. So if you don't mind, what I wanted you to start with was back in 1963, you owned a beautiful quarter horse named Julia's Doll. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yes. We were living in San Luis Obispo at that time, and some people from the valley had sent Monty some horses to start. And in that group was Julia's Doll. She was an elegant, beautiful mare, and Monty started her, and she, the first day she just said, "What do you want me to do? I'll do it for you." She was that kind. And he loved her. But he said, Pat, she's really a very feminine mare. And I think this would be the perfect mare for you. And so eventually we bought her from the Jensens. Those are the people that own Dock Bar, if you recall. And I started showing her as a 2-year-old. Yeah, it was a great, great moment. She was my first real competition horse, and not very many people get to start at the top, and I really was privileged.
Oh yeah, no, you have achieved a lot. So you showed her not only in the halter, because she was just gorgeous, but you also showed her in pleasure.
She was a champion pleasure mare. Yes, she won so much. She. There was only one other horse really going at that time that gave us any trouble winning a class, but I would say that better than 50% of the time she would win, because sometimes judges would ask you to reverse at the lope, change leads without trotting down to do it, and she could do it and the other horse couldn't. So I loved it when they asked for a reverse at the lope.
You're listening for that.
So smooth. Yeah.
Yes. Just beautiful to look at, moving and standing still. She just was put together well, and a beautiful example of a quarter horse, especially at that era too.
Absolutely. And I've done a couple of sculptures of Julia's Doll because she was such a beautiful mare. Actually, though I never did a full body, I did 2 head studies of her. And right now I'm working on a new one that is a full-size head that I'm going to try and make it look like a Julia's Doll, because
you know what? That's
beautiful.
Yeah, her head and her eye. I think she had that one of those really intelligent big eye.
Yeah, eye. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I took her to her AQHA championship. She was an AQHA champion, I think, by age 5 or 6. Really very fast, because she's won so much at both halter and performance in Western pleasure.
Yeah, so she had the points to do it. So how many years did you actually show her?
Oh, I don't know. I probably no more than 4 or 5 years, and then we started to breed her. Yeah. And yes, and we got some wonderful, wonderful babies, and that kind of slides into your story, doesn't it?
Well, it does. That's the generational part for sure. But on your part, I think it's important to note that Julia went to the breeding shed and you went to work with the thoroughbreds, and you and Dad in partnership really formed a completely different track at that point and became quite known in the thoroughbred racing world as starting horses and then preparing them for the ready to race 2-year-olds and up. And you did super well. That was, how many years did that take you?
Well, we got her in 1963, and I showed her, I can really almost tell you now how many years. I showed her for 4 years, because in 66, we moved to Solvang, to what has become Flag Is Up Farms. That was our farm where we live today after 53 years. Monty designed this property, and it's a functioning thoroughbred farm, but also has arenas for Western horses. And so when we moved to the valley, eventually we decided to go into the 2-year-old in training sale. Mm-hmm. And in the fall, summer and fall, we would go back to Kentucky and sometimes to Saratoga, New York, and buy yearlings to bring out to California to start, and then take them to the March 2-year-old in training sale, which was the premier yearling or the premier 2-year-old in training sale for horses, 2-year-olds in training. And we did that for, oh my gosh, how many years? 18 or 20 years. And I think 18 of those years we were the leading consigners for the sale. So that was an interesting period of time, and we had a lot of success doing that. And it was
a lot of exposure to some beautiful, wonderful horses over the years. And I bet you met a lot of really interesting people during all that time too.
We did. In fact, I was just talking the other day about the movie, The Secretariat, and that was such a well done movie. And I have to tell you that we knew all those people that were in the movie, and they portrayed them perfectly. It was such a pleasure to see something that was done correctly. And so I'm glad it had success, and I hope that people will continue to watch the movie.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's become iconic. So you knew Lucien and Penny, and did you ever get to see Secretariat on the track?
I have to tell you, the first Kentucky Derby that I went to was the one that Secretariat. Now, was that awesome?
Yeah, it's awesome. You quit after that, right?
No, I saw one other Kentucky Derby, and I can't even remember what horse was.
Yeah. So he was pretty dominant.
Again, it was starting at the top,
Yeah, beautiful too. And I know you've met celebrities and celebrity trainers and celebrity horse owners over the years that, you get to see at the racetrack too, which is a lot of fun. But I know for a fact that your Pilates instructor moved a few years back.
Yeah. I missed her so much.
And you missed her so much. She's what kept your core together. But before you got into riding again, which we're going to get to, what occupied your time? I know you've raised the horses and you raised a lot of kids and all that too, but tell us a little bit about the art.
Well, after Julia Stahl went back there, and I guess in about 71, I started dabbling in art because we moved into this big, wonderful home with all these white walls, and I needed color, so I went and bought paint and how-to books and started painting, and wasn't very good, but I found a wonderful teacher and started taking lessons, and within 2 years started selling paintings, which is phenomenal, really. I don't know. I guess I had some talent there that she brought out in me, and then after I did that, I started doing sculpting, and I was occupied with the painting for about 5 years, and then I went into sculpting almost full time, and I created a lot of sculptures throughout the years. And it was about 10 years ago that I took up the horses again and sort of backed off on the art a bit, although I continue to sculpt, and I'm doing more painting now than I did then. So life sometimes has circles, and I'm circling back to the oil painting and the sculpture and the horses.
Yeah, and that's why your bronze sculptures of horses are so spot on, because not only did you work the 20-some years in finding the perfect conformation in a horse, but you actually replicated it in clay and then eventually bronzing them, and they're beautiful that way. And I think they just take people's breath away because of the realism there. Every muscle, every bone, every little nuance.
Adage there, I really do. That the going back and buying yearlings at the thoroughbred sales is going to a university in itself. If you don't buy correct individuals that are athletic, they will not succeed at the racetrack. And in order to have this success that we had to pick horses very, very exceptionally well. And we did.
Can you tell us a little about the triangle and how you incorporate not only finding a good horse with the triangle, but then into your sculptures?
I have a difficulty describing it without my hands.
Okay, you're an artist.
But if you took a point and you made a triangle that had the apex at the very middle of the top, the middle of the back, and let it drop down through the shoulder blade and I can't recall the bone in the rear. It goes through the hip and down through the stifle. The larger the bottom of the triangle, the better stride the horse will have. And if that apex is right in the middle of the back, you have the perfect horse. Now, most horses, it will be a little bit forward or a little bit back, and that will throw their stride off a bit. But one of the horses that Monty chose that really was an exceptional horse was the horse called Alleged, and he actually won the Arc de Triomphe twice. And as Monty has said many, many times, that was the most perfect horse that he had ever seen at a sale. And of course, he bought him even though he was in very poor condition at the time, but that did change. So by the time that we had the March 2-year-old in training sale, he topped the sale. So there you go.
There you go. And he had a good triangle.
Oh, a great
best.
Triangle. Perfect. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. See, so there is a little secrets, that artists can use to make their sculptures perfect. I think yours are more accurate, than some of the best in the world, and some of them that are no longer alive. That they can't speak for themselves, but
I know
absolutely.
They can't. But I've been very, very lucky because I've had some wonderful mentors along the line with the sculpture, along with the art. But Jack Swanson was a wonderful artist. And I think if it wasn't for Jack Swanson, I probably never would have done my second sculpture, because he was the one that came along and showed me how to do armature in order to be able to do a horse. And that's a long story, and I won't even go into it today, but I do credit Jack Swanson for keeping me interested and giving me the encouragement to go on with my art.
Yeah, and he was an amazing CA artist, California artist.
Yes, he was a CA artist. In fact, his painting of his was in Ronald Reagan's office when he was governor, and that same painting was taken to the Oval Office when he became president. And It stayed there until the end of his presidency, and then it went back to Sally and Jack, who lived in the Carmel Valley of California.
Yeah. So real history there, and beautiful horses is the thread that goes through that. So, okay, so now you've lost we've wound through your beautiful history of not only championship horses, but championship accomplishments in the art world. So now we're back to losing your Pilates instructor, and you want to work on your core.
Yeah.
So what did you decide to do since you had a couple of horses in the barn?
Well, I decided that I needed to ride, do something with them, because why have a horse in the barn if you're not doing anything with it? And so I started riding these two horses, and I discovered that even though I hadn't had Pilates for a long time, actually it was starting to help me tighten up my core. And the more I rode, the better it became. And it was, it's something that people really just don't talk about, what a great exercise riding is, and what the benefits of riding horses, and not only mentally, but physically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was it?
It improved your back?
It improved back, but of course the back depends on the core. So there it's all integrated.
Exactly right. And so, meanwhile, these horses under you thought, well, I'm not just going to ride. I might actually just go out and find shows to enter. I
did. And in 2010, I was showing a mare called My Diamond Lena. And we started winning. And one day somebody came by and they said, "Hey, Pat, did you know you're reserve champion let's see, what was it? What the class was? Boxing, I guess. And you won a buckle." I said, "I did? I had no idea. I was
by points.
So out of it.
Yeah,
it was by points. I didn't realize that I had so many points that I was reserve champion for the year. So that was like a real kick in the you-know-what. And so I thought, wow, this is kind of fun. I hadn't won a buckle for many years. I did win a lot of buckles a long time ago with the champion halter horses. But anyway, it was fun, and I started showing almost as much as I could. I didn't leave home for a lot because some people travel all over the West, and I stayed mostly locally at first, and then started going out a little farther and a little farther. And I went from My Diamond Lena to, I had another horse in the barn that was a wonderful reiner. His name is Steel Buns, and I started showing him in the reining. She was more of a cow horse. He was more of a reiner, and he did really well for me.
A tall guy too.
Oh, he's 16.1 or something like that. He's big. He's really tall. But the nice thing about all this is that Julia's doll was the great grandmother of Steel Buns, and now a horse called Black Design, the horse that I've been showing the last 2 years. And it's such a wonderful feeling to know that Monty and I have bred these wonderful horses, and that we've had them for so long, and I've made the right decisions on where to take the mare originally to breed, and then with each generation continues seeking the best possible horse that one can breed. And that's so much satisfaction for a person that loves their horses.
That's true. So Black Design was born to sign her genes, your mare.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so not only responsible for Black Design, but also Steel Buns. And so you were able to show them in the ring. So they are the great-grandson?
Yes, the great-grandsons of Julia's doll. Yes.
That's an amazing story that you kept this bloodline going all through those years. You didn't sell them and then buy back into them. You always had one of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you chose the sires.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky. I chose really good horses that crossed well on my mares. And it's been a program that's been you'd have to call it successful, because a horse like Black Design is really an exceptional horse. This year he's 10, and I've been showing him now since he was 6, and we're doing better each year. So practice does make perfect. Not perfect, but practice
perfect
does make
practice
better.
Makes perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
But and we forgot about Nice Chrome in there too. So a lot of people know Dad Monty's champion reign cow horse, and his name is Nice Chrome. So full brother to Steel Buns.
He's a full brother to Steel Buns. Yes. Yeah. And the sire of both of them was Captain Nice, who died last year, I believe, with Ron. He was with Ron Rawls. Ron showed him for us many, many years ago, and then he went to another owner, and then Ron got him back, and he spent the rest of his life there with Ron. So that's always a nice story too.
That is, and Philip. Yes, and Philip Rawls, his son, an accomplished trainer, including World's Greatest Horseman, reserve champion titles, and things like that too. He actually didn't he put some training on Black Design?
He started Black Design, Blackie, and he also showed him at the Snaffle Bit Futurity, where he made the finals, and he placed well. Actually, he got ulcers during the finals up there, and he wasn't his very best, but he got through the finals and won a bit of money and a buckle, and all the other things that you win if you make the top 25 out of usually about 300, which is quite an accomplishment in itself. And so then we brought him home, gave him some time off, and then I said, well, what do we do with him? And Philip said, I don't think you could show him, because he knew where I was going, because I sort of, what do you think? You think I could show him? He said, I don't think so. He's a lot of horse, got a big engine there. And so Monty says, oh, Pat, I really don't want you to ride him, because I think he'll hurt you. He's just too much. He's too much. And I just took my time, and I formed a bond with Blackie, and we have done so well. If I'm good, he's really good. If we make a mistake, it's me, not Blackie. He's a great
He tries
horse.
so hard too. Yeah, he really is. And so, despite being out of the competition world for 50 years, you just hooked them and got out there and got up on your horses again and got a coach. You were coached too, which was really smart. You didn't do.
Yeah. Yes, I've worked with quite a few trainers, and I'm always open to new ideas and better ways of doing things, and I give a lot of credit to Sandy Collier and Ron Rawls for working with me. And John McCarty's been great helping with the cattle. And I get to ride with Shannon McCarty, who shows in the non-pros. And it's fun to watch her, and she kind of keeps an eye on me. She hollers at me occasionally, hey, do this and do that. But anyway, we're pals, and we ride together. So you have to stay at it. It's something that you can't do on weekends. It's something that you have to put the time in, and it pays off, and pays off quite well sometimes. Blackie and I won a saddle at Santa Barbara Fiesta year before last, which was wonderful, and then found out in mid-December that we were eligible for the World's Championship show with the National Reining Cowhorse Association coming up in February in two events, both the 5,000 and the Open Non-Pro Limited. Of course, that's a long ways to go. So, and I have a lot of responsibility here on the farm, and I have my artwork. So we'll probably just stick around in California, but maybe go to Reno or Las Vegas next year.
I was going to say, did we yeah, that's right. It's 2020 now, because in 2019, what did you do in Reno?
In Reno, we had a wonderful show. I showed in the Open Limited Cow Horse class and the 5,000 limit non-pro. And we were second by half a point in the Open, and we won the 5,000 limited. And I was really pleased. We scored well, and the class, I think there was 63 in it or something. So that was quite a feat. And Blackie was good, and so was Pat.
And so was Pat. That's right. And then you got hardware to show for it too, which is really fun.
We got a beautiful, beautiful buckle to show for it. Yeah, another nice things.
It's not like really my parents are competitive at all. I think we've got a little competitive blood in the family here too.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is probably where I should add too, that you show in divisions for sure, but what's the next youngest person in most of the classes that you're in when you compete?
I've never gone around and asked people what they
how
your
old they are. Guess.
But I'd say somewhere between 55 and 62. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's very many people my age, running around in the show ring.
Oh, you're not 55 to 62?
No, I'm a little bit above that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think hopefully I won't get in trouble for this, but I think in your 8th decade, there are a lot of people who would say, well, how he does this, where he says, I'm not going to tell Pat's age, but she was 1 year behind me in school. And so I figured he kind of let the cat out of the bag there a little bit.
Yeah. Age is just a number, and it's really what you feel. And, I love getting up every day, going down, riding my horse or horses, depending on what time I have. And I don't think of myself as being old. Although if I look back at it when I was half my age now, I would have thought my age was old. So isn't that amazing how things change?
Well, I think you would actually be amazed at half age to see what you were doing, though, in your 8th decade too. I think you probably would say that's a prototype or something again. But the other thing that I want to add here, which was really fun too, that you and your best friend Joanne Jones of Morro Bay also in November went over to something called the Notable Ladies of the West.
Right.
What'd you do there?
We were given the who's who of the Western world, notable ladies of the West, gold and silver medallions by the World of Rodeo reunion in Las Vegas at the New Orleans Hotel. And it surprised both of us. We had no idea. It was people that they're presented this award for contributions to the world of rodeo. And, of course, we've done a lot of things. It's not just art or it's also supporting rodeo and being a part of it. And, of course, many, many years ago when Monty was young and John W., Joanne's husband, passed now, rodeoed together. And so we often went to rodeos together, and we're well known in the rodeo world and known for having a good time and contributing a lot of laughs. And so it was a surprise, but it was really a nice surprise. And we went over to Las Vegas and received our gold and silver medallions and, received applause and congratulations. And, it's a nice thing. It's a really nice thing, and we really do appreciate that.
So if your health can stay with you, which you've been blessed to have, then and you work at it too to keep yourself healthy, then we can compete well into our 8th decade. And I hope you're sticking to it.
I'm going to continue to compete as long as Blackie's around. I'm kind of like the Queen. If Blackie wasn't around, maybe I wouldn't ride. She said that. She said that about Terry. Yeah, if Terry's not around to ride with me, I don't think I'll ride anymore. Well, I'm kind of like, well, if Blackie wasn't around, I don't think it would be as much fun.
That's true. You're so spoiled. You are so spoiled. He said, he's so good. He's so good. Well, I mean, I want to end with this too. It's somebody might say this is very self-serving that I get to have my mom on and brag on all these things that you're doing, but Dizzy Dean, you can Google him. Dizzy Dean said the famous line that it ain't bragging if you can do it. And you did it. So I'm proud of you.
Wow.
True,
I'll have to remember that one. I like that.
Yeah. So we're not just bragging on you. We're just making sure that everybody knows about it and is inspired by it. And I think you've done that.
I hope that's what I hope. All the ladies that I ride with, they all tell me, when we grow up, we want to be just like you, and that's a compliment, I must say.
That's awesome. Awesome.
It really is awesome. They're wonderful. Such a support team. And they cheer for me, and it's lovely. It really is.
She has cheerleaders. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your story. That's a nice little catch up. What are you going to do for us in the next 6 months or so that we can come follow you?
Ooh, I'll have to just get on my horse and go and compete and see what I can come back and tell you about.
There we go. We will hold you accountable. Thanks.
Oh, good.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place and learn the magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, I have an ex-racehorse mare that I struggle to get in from the field. She's good to go into the field and is happy while out there, but when I try to get her in from the field, she'll plant her feet, and if I do manage to get her to move, she'll continuously canter circles around me, and she's run me over before until we're back in the yard. Also, if other horses go near her on either side, she bolts and runs in blind panic and has run through and into fences on multiple occasions. Any advice you could give me would be greatly appreciated. Monty's answer. If you don't have a dually halter, then you need one. I will explain more about the equipment in the next paragraph, but first, you need your own physiology to be right using diaphragmatic breathing. If your adrenaline is up, your horses will likely rise as well. Breathing and relaxing will create a calmer environment for you and the horse. Second, appropriate equipment is essential to help build your confidence. Use a longer lead than most people use. I use a 30-foot line, but if your hands are smaller, a 17-foot line is sufficient for training. With this, if she is inclined to bolt, you have more line in your hand to bring her around with. To train, find a time when you can focus on her with no deadlines. Use an arena with good footing appropriate for safe training. I suggest you school your mare to stand still, walk when you walk, stop when you stop, and back up when you back up. These skills will transfer to more challenging areas. Once you have trained your mare living to the rules you have trained for, and once you get this behavior modified, go to the field and repeat the process. It may not be easy, but I know it will work.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to montyroberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page. Imagine if you could take Monty to the barn with you. Watch and learn as he addresses each challenge with your horse and answers your questions too. You head to the arena and you work on each new lesson, knowing Monty's there to encourage you, all with violence-free, tried and true methods. After all, he's been helping train horse lovers all his life. With his online university, you could be like Kathy, a retired teacher who just bought her first horse.
Recently, I went to a tack shop to look for a smaller halter. I'm 61, just purchased my 14 hands POA the day after my birthday, just a few weeks ago, after never having had a horse. And yes, that's crazy, but as a retired teacher who never had a hobby other than teaching, I decided to go for it. My hubby and I have taken lessons this past year, but I really longed for a relationship with a horse. The only other experience I'd ever had was to ride a horse in Philly, Pennsylvania, my hometown, when I was 16, and I got bucked off. And that was it until I was 61. Well, the owner of this tack shop, just this precious lady, 84-year-old lady, gave me a copy of this magazine, Equine Monthly. And the article I read in it was Horses Are Biofeedback Beings. And it was just so interesting. I really felt like I just found a pot of gold when I read it, because in it talked about Monty's online university and that I could have access to 575 videos for $10 a month. And before that, I was just searching YouTube for everything I could find. But truthfully, that's just a pain. I love that the uni videos are concise and they're in order. They have extra notes and a quiz. And I just can't thank you enough for the huge blessing of your online university. It really has changed my life, and I will never be the same. I've had my horse Jack now for 7 weeks, and thanks to the videos, I've done join up with him, and it really worked like a dream. I had to do it in an arena, but it still worked. Thanks to Monty's lessons and the cues and the hand signals. The ability to watch the lessons over and over on demand is incredible. So I also want to thank you so very much for making the online university affordable for this retired teacher. Thank you so much for all that you do for everyone who really wants to love a horse. Kathy.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged, May 1 through 3. He has that Horse Sense and Healing for veterans and first responders. So if you know anybody, send them our way. May 14th is Monty's 85th birthday. We're building up to that crescendo. And then May 18 through 22 are the advanced exams at Flag Is Up Farms with Denise Heinlein and Monty. Then June 21, 22, and 23 will be back at Flag Is Up Farms. It's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday with Monty Roberts, Temple Grandin. For those of you who know her, she is an amazing flight animal who's written a bunch of books and is also high-functioning autistic, full professor at Colorado State University. Google her, amazing woman. Rick Lamb will be our host and MC, and then we have lots of other outstanding presenters. You'll have to go on the website. That is themovement2020.com. So www.themovement2020.com. Then we go to June 29 through July 3, Monty Special Training in Portuguese. We'll have a group coming up from Brazil. And then July 24, 25, 26, we have another Horse Sense and Healing for veterans and first responders. August 3 through 7, we have Monty Special Training. That is, we are in our about 15th year with that. Very special time, 5 days with Monty and 5 days with the horses. August 17 through 28 is our now iconic Gentling Wild Horse course, 2 weeks of really fun, from completely untouched to how far can we take them? And then September 11 through 13, we have another Horse Sense and Healing. At the same time, we're running a CHA Equine Facility Management Certification course at Flag Is Up Farm. So it's going to be a 3-ring circus and a lot of fun, September 11 through 13. We're going to stop right there.
It's a busy place. Now, every show, I ask you something about one of the things on the calendars because there's so much going on. For Monty's special training in Portuguese or English, is that open to the public? Can anybody sign up to see that?
Yes, there is. It's really more of an auditor's course. We've had professional jockeys, professional trainers come through, and maybe they'll get in there and do a join up and do some other things, which is kind of educational too. It's really fun to see a professional horse trainer. This is where Joe Camp came. He came to a Monty Special Training. Some people know Joe Camp from Soul of the Horse, and he was just getting into horses at that time. Believe it or not, it was before the Soul was written, and he ended up adopting one of the babies out of there, one that you can see on his website to this day, called Mouse. She was abandoned and out of Nebraska somewhere or something. She was this tiny little thing he used as a podium, even though she practically, 16 men it took to get her in the trailer to get there. So it's things like that. We get to see her first day, her second day, her third day, her fourth day, and just see that whole training process unfold incrementally. And it's a lot of fun. It's not just untouched horses. It's horses that maybe it's the starter, maybe it's the refuses to load on the trailer, maybe it's learning to back up, first days of a turn. It just depends on the horses that really show up by the instructor that's sourcing the horses on that day.
So this is going to be a extended period of being an auditor and watching the training processes with a variety of different horses.
Yeah.
And is this interactive in that the auditors are able to quiz the trainer about what's going on in front of them?
Absolutely. Questions are encouraged, actually, because there's so many times when we're working with the horses, it's quiet, we're explaining what's going on, but it's almost like a special dance with certain things, depending on the horse, how fractious they are, how fearful they are, depending on what they've been through. And so we tend to be kind of quiet, but we'll encourage people to ask the questions right from the side of the round pen, because we want to know why their hand went there just when it went there, especially with a horse that's skeptical, Mm-hmm. So it is really fun to see them start to learn to trust day after day. They become more comfortable when they walk in that round pen. They almost seem, or arena, or wherever we happen to be, we use the full facility depending on what the issue has been or what the stage of training is. But the interesting thing is latent learning. We call it latent learning, and you're probably familiar with it, Jen. But it's that where they left the pen at the end of yesterday, and they come back, what it seems is further ahead than the day before.
Right. Yes. And I always looked at that now that I understand what it is. Thank you. Thank you, Job at Horse Radio Network, for helping me learn all these cool things from all these cool people.
Yeah.
It seems like they go home and they think about it and go, oh, yeah, I get it now. And that was always to me an indicator that I'm getting something right. If my horse comes back next day and is less far along, I'm doing something wrong. I need to check my notes a little bit. So Monty's special training in Portuguese, June 29 through July 3rd, and Monty's special training in English, August 3 through August 7, 2020. If you're listening to this in 2023, it's over. There's going to be a different date.
There's another one.
There's going to be another one, and it's going to be a different date. And the place you need to find that information is going to be at montyroberts.com, because I'm sure the website's going to still be there.
Yep.
That's right. Or you can call Flag Is Up Farm, because there are helpful and useful people there. 805-688-6288. They can help you out. And for details about today's show, go to horsemanshipradio.com, where you're going to find links to our guests and topics, photos, and more information. And great place to interact with Monty Roberts and all the cool stuff going on at Flag Is Up Farms is on the Facebook, Monty Roberts. Just type it in there. Or on Twitter or Instagram. Both handles are Monty_Roberts. And in order to not miss any episodes of Horsemanship Radio or any other show on the Horse Radio Network you want to listen to, go to your app store, search Horse Radio Network, download it today. It works in iTunes. It works on Android as well as iPhones.
That's true. Well done, Jen. Thank you for getting all that in there. And many thanks to our sponsors, too. That's Omega Fields and Cavallo Horse and Rider and Monty Roberts University. And be sure to visit all the other great shows, too, and all their sponsors. Support them at the Horse Radio Network at www.horseradionetwork.com. Until then, have many happy horse hours.